What if Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind and Castle in the Sky aren't just two separate Ghibli classics, but part of the same forgotten timeline? What if the floating city of Laputa and the toxic jungle of Nausicaa's world are pieces of one long story about humanity's rise, fall, and desperate attempt to start over? Sounds crazy, right? But when you start connecting the dots, the shared creatures, the ancient weapons, and the mythic tone, it starts to make sense. It all started when I noticed something small, almost too small to matter. Nausicaa's little fox-squirrel, Teto. That same creature shows up again in Castle in the Sky, sitting on the robot's shoulder as it gently lays a flower at a grave. It's one of those blink and you'll miss it details that suddenly opens a door in your brain, because once you spot it, you start realizing just how many things these two films share. Ancient machines, nature reclaiming the earth, the same glowing blue energy that seems to bind everything together. And that's when the question hit me. What if Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind and Castle in the Sky aren't just similar in style, but part of the same timeline? It sounds wild, but the deeper you dig, the more the pieces start to line up. The creatures, the themes, even the history of their worlds, they all feel like two halves of one long story. The only mystery left is the order. Which came first? The floating city of Laputa or the toxic jungle of Nausicaa's world? That's what we're diving into today. Because once you start piecing it together, Miyazaki's films begin to look less like separate adventures and more like chapters in a single myth. One about how humanity keeps rising, falling, and trying again to live in harmony with the world that it nearly destroyed. First, let's look at what the films actually tell us. In Nausicaa, the 7 Days of Fire, a catastrophic war that wiped out civilization, happened 1,000 years before Nausicaa's story. And in Castle in the Sky, Muska says Laputa was abandoned 700 years ago. Already those numbers line up. It means these events could overlap. Either Laputa was one of the civilizations that triggered the 7 Days of Fire, or it was built afterwards by the survivors trying to start anew. And both explanations could make sense. Imagine this. Nausicaa fulfills the prophecy of the blue-clad one, brings peace to the world, and unites the warring nations. After generations of struggle, humanity finally begins to rebuild. But even after the forest purifies the earth, the planet never fully forgives us. The land remains unstable, the air uncertain, and people, being people, start fighting again over control and resources. Somewhere along the line, Nausicaa's descendants, maybe her people, maybe Kushana's, decide that the only way to protect life on Earth is to rise above it, literally. They build Laputa, a flying kingdom that carries forests, rivers, and entire ecosystems up into the sky. The technology they use might even be remnants of the God Warriors, those ancient weapons powered by that same blue energy that fuels Laputa's core. If you think about it, that glowing stone that Sheeta carries is almost identical to the heart of the God Warrior. Both radiate a divine, almost unnatural light, the fire of heaven. This would make Laputa a kind of utopian dream born out of Nausicaa's world, a new Eden in the clouds. But like every utopia in Miyazaki's films, it doesn't last. The people of Laputa begin to drift from Nausicaa's values. The robots that once tended to the forests become weapons. The kings grow arrogant, believing they control the elements. The city that was meant to preserve nature ends up enslaving it. Eventually, the same cycle repeats. Power leads to decay, and when Laputa falls, it takes humanity's arrogance down with it. Hundreds of years later, the descendants of those who fled to the ground, the Sheetas and Pazus of the world, discover what's left. Ruins, myths, and a single robot still tending the garden. The idea of Nausicaa happening first even explains the character parallels. Sheeta mirrors Nausicaa in every way. Her compassion, her bond with nature, her willingness to sacrifice herself for peace. When Muska shoots off her braids before the final scene, she literally looks like Nausicaa. And in that moment, she does the same thing Nausicaa did. She gives up everything to stop destruction. Muska, meanwhile, feels like a descendant of Kushana, the same mix of brilliance and arrogance, trying to reclaim the glory of the past. He even speaks with the same self-righteous tone, convinced that power makes him divine. And Pazu? He's basically Asbel, a young, brave pilot driven by heart over pride, standing beside a girl who might save the world. It's like the same souls keep reappearing, reincarnated to relive the same lesson in different forms. Now the other theory. That castle in the sky happened first. It flips everything upside down, but it's just as convincing. If Laputa came before Nausicaä, then we're looking at a timeline where humanity reached its technological peak long before the Valley of the Wind existed. Laputa becomes the symbol of ultimate human arrogance, a city that literally rises above the earth, cut off from its suffering below. Muska even describes Laputa's weaponry as the fire of heaven that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. He calls it Indra's arrow, a reference to a god of lightning and destruction. These lines aren't random. They place Laputa in ancient mythic time, as if it was the civilization that caused a near-biblical apocalypse. So what if that fire of heaven is the same fire that scorched the world in Nausicaä? The fire of the 7 days of fire. In that case, Nausicaa's world is what comes after. The forests grow from the ashes. The earth, poisoned by Laputan technology, begins to heal itself. The Omu, the spores, the toxic jungle, they're not curses. They're the planet's antibodies. Laputa's fall becomes the birth of Nausicaa's world. The idea fits perfectly with Miyazaki's reoccurring message about cycles, destruction giving way to renewal. Humanity rises too high, nature knocks us down, and Earth reclaims what's left. Nausicaä then becomes this Christ-like figure for this new world, the one who restores balance after humanity's fall from grace. This is why Nausicaa's story feels so tragic and hopeful at the same time. She's not trying to conquer nature or lead humanity into a new golden age. She's trying to teach us to coexist, or if we can't, to let go. There's a reason her resurrection scene feels spiritual. She dies to stop the rage of the Omu, and in return they lift her body, bathed in a gold light. It's not divine intervention, it's nature responding to compassion. It's the earth saying, "Finally, someone understands." That same moment repeats in Castle in the Sky. When Sheeta recites the spell of destruction, she knows she's ending her own world. Laputa's weapons collapse, the city crumbles, and all that's left is the tree, a living monument floating quietly above the clouds. Both heroines perform the same act. They destroy the thing their ancestors worshipped in order to free what truly matters. They're not just similar characters, they're the same archetype. Two sides of the same eternal myth. And here's where the theory comes full circle. If Laputa happened first, the 7 days of fire could have been triggered by the uncontrolled energy of its technology, the same fire of heaven that destroyed everything below. The few survivors hide underground, slowly rebuilding over generations until Nausicaa's world emerges. If Nausicaä happened first, her legacy becomes the seed that grows into Laputa, humanity's attempt to preserve her dream only to corrupt it over time. Either way, the result is the same. Humanity keeps repeating the cycle of creation, destruction, and renewal. That's what ties both stories together. In Laputa, we see humanity at the height of arrogance, reaching too far. In Nausicaä, we see the aftermath, learning humility, learning to listen. Sky and earth, rise and fall, sin and forgiveness. It's the same lesson told twice. There's even a spiritual dimension to this connection. Both films blur the line between science and religion. Machines powered by energy that feels divine, prophecies that sound like myths, but turn out to be technology. Miyazaki builds worlds where morality and nature are the same force. In Nausicaä, the toxic forest is a living sermon. Sin leads to decay, but decay leads to growth. In Castle in the Sky, the Garden of Laputa's core is heaven itself. Pure, peaceful, and empty. Both films end on the same note. Silence. No fireworks, no victory speech. Just quiet. Laputa drifts away into the clouds, its tree still alive. Nausicaä walks into the wind, smiling softly as life goes on. They're both saying the same thing. Peace isn't something we build, it's something we return to when we stop trying to control everything. So maybe it doesn't matter which story came first. Maybe Miyazaki wasn't building a timeline, he was building a myth, a story that plays on repeat through history. Humanity forgets, nature forgives, and every so often, a single person stands in the middle, willing to listen. Maybe Nausicaä and Sheeta are echoes of each other. Maybe they're reincarnations of the same spirit, the same girl reborn each time the world needs to be reminded what balance looks like. That's what the fox-squirrel represents. It's the smallest creature in both films, fragile, harmless, and easily overlooked. Yet it's always there, surviving every apocalypse, sitting beside gods and humans alike. It's Miyazaki's way of saying, life goes on, even when we don't. Whether Nausicaä came before Laputa or after, both tell the same story, about pride, fall, and renewal. One shows the world collapsing under its own ambition, the other shows what it takes to rebuild from the ashes. In one, we fly too high. In the other, we finally learn to walk again. And that's why these two films, separated by years of release, feel like mirror images. They're Miyazaki's two halves of the same prayer. That one day, we'll learn to live with the earth instead of above it.